Yes, I'm Shan O'Donnell and I live on the 12th floor and I've been about 20 years in the building with my family and still enjoying it. Yeah, yeah, so I did live across the road for a few years and then we got an option to move here which I took straight away and I may have to move in the next 4 weeks but I intend to stay within the building. It's worth the effort and even the extra money it may cost. But Trellick means a lot to me, as opposed to a home. It's everything I'd want from an address, you know. But yeah.
Why would you have to move in 4 weeks?
I ended up renting. I separated from my family, and I ended up renting a flat below them, 3 floors below them, a few years later, and that's come to a conclusion, which is fine. And I always knew that was a temporary fixture, but I got 8 years there, and now my children are, excuse me, are adults, so they don't need me next door anymore. But personally, I intend to stay in the building, so I will seek to make that work as best I can. It's worth it, you know. Yeah, it's for various reasons, but it's just I like living in the sky. I just love being able to see to the horizon. You know, I'd value that more than a garden because I'm looking over London anyway. I'm looking over everything. You know, it's the best of everything, and it's silent up there. It's quieter, is the word. I'm not in the traffic or the public, passing public, etc. So I notice these things when I walk in there at night, and it's as if I'm in the countryside. But, you know, it really is sometimes.
Tell us more about what it's like to live in the sky.
It's what you make of it too. When I moved in, I washed all the windows in the hallway as a gesture to my neighbours. So they hadn't met me or they didn't know my name, but I just thought actions speak louder. So that was my way of saying hello, and within a month I knew my neighbours, to say hello, small talk, and not feel strange at the lift, where you do have to spend a fraction of your life when you live in a high rise. You do wait on lifts, and when one's broke you wait longer, and when it's rush hour for school you wait even longer for a lift. And so again, it was important that my children felt comfortable too. They didn't act strange with their neighbours. It's that thing, you're living with each. It's a communal space, so it's not about coming and going. It's about everything between your flat and the pavement. And equally, my children wouldn't want to leave either. They love living in this building, you know, and because it's in their blood too. They wouldn't have it any other way, you know. And what else? I mean, it's a concrete building, so structurally it's the quietest address you could have. You can't hear your neighbours, what they play on their record player, what station they're on the TV, or what conversation or business or arguments. You don't hear any of that. You just don't. So that's a real value in a city, to have that sort of calmness about your address. You don't get that readily in a city of this size.
Do you think that might change if they build other tall buildings around it?
The new development goes to 6 or 7 floors. I can appreciate why. It's in keeping with Block B and the Edenham Estate blocks of a similar size, 6 floors. I'm not bothered. We do need housing, but not at the expense of a children's playground, which we're going to lose. And I can't understand why we're adding 110 or 20 units, which will bring in more children, yet taking away the children's facility. And it's very odd, you know. I mean, high rises, I understand you're not allowed to have dogs in a high rise because they need an open space. What's the difference between pups, kittens and children? They're all energetic creatures in their youth. They need outdoor space, you know, and that's the problem. What do the local, I mean, the problem is these are going to be private flats for the most part, if not all, and people buying into them generally are able to take their kids elsewhere, maybe one holiday a year, maybe to the cinema, take them other places, whereas I'm aware the local children can't afford such gestures, and they do need that open space downstairs for the football and their just the social development. You know, no matter what it is, even if they're not playing a game, it's just being in a group among your friends of your own age and developing your social skills. You can't do that in a bedroom looking at a virtual screen pressing a button. It's, you know, that doesn't develop a child's well-being, whereas open spaces do. And just because my children have grown beyond that need, I still value it. I'd love it to be there for their children, etc. It's only right that it should be cared for and kept, because you may lose 10 flats from the development to retain that, but for the next 100 years, everyone has an open space which adds a value to their address. So why profit once and lose this place of value forever? And I know we've Meanwhile Gardens and the skate bowl. It's more of an individual area. This is about teamwork. You know, ball courts about teamwork and loyalties and all that exchange that goes on. And picking, choosing, failure, success, all them things happen on a flat surface like that. And I think it's one of the most important parts here, because Goldfinger put it in, you know, and how can a new architect add more children and take away their part? You know, they'll put in parking for the cars, you know, but those with the least voice are being walked over, because across the road, literally, Wardington Estate reduced 500 homes and in their place put in 850 without a ball court. And the same's happening here now at Trellick, adding units and taking away the ball court. So a lot of all the needs of the youth now are concentrating on less. There's more competition for these play areas. So the juniors, those under 10 and 12, don't get a look in, because it's the teenagers who are just doing their thing playing there now. By the law of average, someone's going to miss out. And yeah, it's because on top of the car park, which we did have for a few years in the 70s, till the council vandalised it by demolishing it, rather than just locking it up at great expense. They demolished it. That had a proper play area on top of it with relief. So the council demolished that, and now the new development is taking the ball court. So they're chipping away at children's needs, rather. Do you know? And yeah, that does bother me. And no one seems to care much until it's gone, and then we'll hear all the unhappy comments then, but not in advance of its leaving.
What would you personally like to see happen to Cheltenham Estate?
It is necessary to build in that space. I knew it would, but they're encroaching on the Trellick footprint from the old folks' home, which did outgrow its needs. That as a builder, I understood why that got demolished due to modern needs, etc. But I was surprised that they sought to bring their housing development to the toenails of Trellick, if you want to say, right up against Trellick, and it's a denser concentration than we had. And again, I would be cool about this if they were all social buildings on council property, which it is. That's what bothers me. It's social land that's been sold for a one-off profit at the expense of the original tenants and ethos of social housing space and well-being. And yeah, as I say, those with the least money will feel it the most, is how I may put it. Yeah.
From what you've said, it sounds as though you believe that it's becoming more of a business opportunity rather than a community focused social housing project?
Yes, I'd agree. Yeah, I'm surprised because it's at a time when we talk about, you know, there's an epidemic of obesity apparently in Britain. You know, it's the youth are just eating the wrong foods and not running around. So how can we be denying them one of the several factors that would resolve this? And that's an outdoor lifestyle. Whereas we're all engineered now to be plugged into a room rather than being running around outside, which I did in my youth. And you exercise your imagination in a different way when you're outdoors as opposed to being indoors in a room with a hole of a window, rather than this, you know, the value of light and the, you know, what's that, vitamin D, we need to be outside more, little things like that. How can you get that sitting in a room, you know? It just, and it doesn't work. Forgive me, but that's my thoughts on that space. So I do wish to I will attend the meetings and just put my point as I have to you, and I'd like the architects to justify why they're building over it, and ask what are the needs of their children by day.
Could you tell us a bit more about what it was like to raise your children in Trellick?
Just the layout of the building's very good, each flat. It's a lot better inside than it looks on the outside. I mean, I loved the appearance outside. It was bold and individual, and that's why it stands out. It's not complying. It's a very adventurous statement when that went up, and but the bonus is when you go inside, it's even better. And the rooms, I would call them good. I'd call them all a good size, and the balconies are the width of the flat rather than a box balcony attached to the flat, which has one entrance. All balconies in Trellick, other than a one bedder, have two entrances or exits. So you have rotation. You can go out the lounge, come in the kitchen, or vice versa. And this allows your pets and your children to run around. If it's wet outside, they're still out in the elements by being on the balcony without knowing it. It's that subtle difference. You don't feel, I have to go out today. If you sat on your balcony doing your work or talking to your friend or little things like that, it brings you in and out. So it's that can only be a good thing. And yeah, and I see the balcony as part of the flat and not so much a story of rubbish, which sadly too many people seem to do. It's the best part of the flat for me. Yeah, but the children, again, it allowed them the same thing. They could sit out there and shut the door, and we'd be inside, or vice versa. You know, it's this little private space, and we have meanwhile gardens behind, which I think is it's a compliment to Trellick to have such a quality space with a canal, which is amazing. Just to have boats passing by, that's rather nice. And yeah, the kids now, they're 20 and 25, and they love the building and wouldn't want to leave because they've been to friends' homes. And my daughter said, yeah, I still prefer to stay in Trellick despite all the options. I don't know that anywhere is perfect, and I don't seek utopia, but in reality, this building offers a lot, and I'm pleased it's still effectively a social building for the most part, because that was its intended purpose, and I think it should be kept as an example of how social housing can be. It doesn't have they should build another Trellick. It doesn't have to be done in concrete. It can be done in modern steel fabrications and to the same footprint, and giving other people the same value of living, rather than the modern hen houses for people, which you have kitchen, diners, bedrooms that barely close the door when you put a bed in them. You know, it's shocking. I am a builder of 30 years, and it's regressive. I mean, we're now adopting a Japanese psychology that if you can get your shoes beside your bed, you should be thankful. And that is creeping into modern London housing culture, as it were now. It's big, architects and the governments, councils are accepting more restrictive sort of planning. They're allowing developers to squeeze more units into a plot at the expense of the living experience. Thus, people are forever moving in this city. You'll meet someone, you'll take a 1-bedroom flat and that you'll barely get your stuff into, and then if you have a child, you move to a 2-bedder, and where the rooms are so small, you really need a 3-bedder. And you know, they're not making homes that you can stay in. It's you know, but it's a shame. But that's the pressure of economics, and everyone seems to want to live in London. Here I am myself, as an emigree of 30 years, and like I say, I'm a guest of London. I will say that, you know, and very fortunate to spend most of it in Trellick.
You say that you talk a lot about your children and how they had the opportunity to live in a very nice building, nice surroundings.
Yes.
Do you think, well, what do you think they think about it? Because obviously they had this very nice life, and now potentially, not only here, but maybe like overall in London or other places, it's going to be quite difficult to live in the city but then have this open space around it. Do you know what their thoughts are?
But they're proud to be in this, but I know that they're actually, because it's now a sort of, it's nearly a media address. You know, you look up Trellick or print the word. It's a global word, in my opinion. Now it's well known. But so they're rather pleased about that. But they know the value of it, having lived here, as opposed to thinking, you know, grass is greener over the fence. They know the nuts and bolts of Trellick, and we do have the odd dodgy neighbour giving issues now and then, and things do happen, but all within context of any collection of homes, which Trellick has 217. So you will have the menu of life happening within this building. But by and large, there was 4 crack houses when I moved in 20 years ago, and that took about 5 years to resolve. Security's got better, so it's slowly gaining its rightful reputation. It did have a very poor reputation because the council didn't exercise a concierge, as Goldfinger suggested downstairs. Thus, it developed its own negative thieving culture within the building, and drugs, and in a high rise people can't see what's going on up on the 10th, 12th floor. It's out of sight. So a lot more did happen back in the 70s and 80s, and but all that's by and by with the buy to let. Also then you had a percentage of all the people who bought in because they cared, and this brings a different approach to the building. People who buy their flats by and large care about it, and we still have people in the building who leave the rubbish outside their door in the hallway, thinking the council should come and move their rubbish for them and put it down the chute for them, and etc. Some people just think it should be done for them, but they're in a minority, and they come with the territory anyway. Even modern blocks in London can have their challenging neighbours, but no, I can't. You know, when you weigh it up, I don't see much wrong with the place. It's been ignored since its existence by the council. I've never painted the outside. In the 20 years I've been here, they've never did any cyclical painting, which you're meant to do with wood. Every 5 to 7 years, paint will peel. You need to address that. it's a duty of the council to do it, but they've never done it. And now they use terminology that Trellick is soaking up all the money for this part of the ward, what they in turn created a negative situation which needs much more money. A stitch in time does save 9, and this is a perfect example of a building that's been left and left and left. And it's nearly part of its beauty that it being concrete, it's a bit, reminds me of Stonehenge. It'll get better with age when different mollusks and bacteria grow on it, etc. It's a lifetime product. It doesn't need painting or washing or etc. as other buildings, because of the rough textured surface, which is done via scabbling, which is when you strike the shutters you have a flat grey cement surface, but you get a long air gun that breaks the surface with all these spikes, and it reveals the aggregate, the colour of the stones, and it gives you a very dense texture which then dissipates water flow. As it rains, it dissipates it. You don't, window coming off a windowsill in a house, you'll eventually see a black line down each side. With this building, it dissipates water, it weathers better, and it changes colour in the sunset, which you see endlessly. Even though people refer to it as a grey building, they don't study it when the sun's setting, and the colours come out. But it does look after itself in one sense, but it's been ignored. And yeah, I've watched I'm 25 years looking off balconies, watching the entire neighbourhood get scaffolded twice for the repairs, painting, etc. And Trellick's had nothing other than the east windows replaced a few years ago out of necessity, because the prevailing weather comes from southwest, and it whips around the east side of Trellick, peeling the paint off the windows over the years. Thus they fell into decay and had to be replaced. But that was out of necessity rather than regard for the building. And equally, Lake House did repairs 4 or 5 years ago, which are appalling and falling to bits now because it was the lowest common denominator, and that's exactly what we got. We got a cheap fix for a short term, and yeah, the building's not getting its due regard, in my opinion, as a builder. It's been left a long time, and thus you will have issues. So it's still social, unlike Balfron, which is built first, and Trellick owes a homage to Balfron because having built that, he refines his ideas slightly, and Trellick looks the slicker version of the two. But that's thanks to Balfron, which has now become a private building. So that made a lot of people nervous in Trellick, and it would be a crime if these two social building classics should become sold to the few in the private market, rather than being available to an ever-changing volume of social people who come and go from them. That would be a shame. Yeah.
Could you share some more memorable moments of your time in Trellick? Because you've mentioned the living experience, the way that it's transformed from the 70s and the reputation that it's had. Could you share more about more of those memorable events and days that you've had?
I joined the committee to get access. I'm curious about the building itself, and I enjoy photography, and I wanted to see excuse me, the guts of the building, you know, how its core, as you might say. And I joined the committee, and for various reasons, but that's one of them, I'll be honest. And back then you could get a key and go and get access and just have a look around, and that was helpful for me. And then being on the committee, you get involved with art projects, etc., that come into the building. People might ask to do some project, and then you get it. If you're on the committee, you're aware of this, and then I offer to help, etc. One major part was Ron Hazelden is a light artist. His medium are lights, and he was approached by a guy who built the unit across the tracks, Barley Shots, I think it's called, Barley Shots. There's a bakery, etc. across the road, but that architect saw the relationship between the length of his building and the height of Trellick, and he got Ron Hazelden involved, and he had a trilogy for Trellick, of only which the first part was completed. And that involved offering everyone in Block A, the tower itself, rather than Block B, which is runs along Goulburn with the shop. So you had about 150 flats, which I elected to door knock and offer the lights. And that in itself taught me a lesson that however good or slick or cool you think your ideas are, not everyone sees it or wants it or needs it. So a third of the tenants accepted the lights, which surprised. I thought more would take to this colourful 1 hour event, free of charge, colour, etc. But a third accepted it, and thankfully they were uniformly dispersed over the building. So we didn't have a cluster of colour one place, it was kind of uniform, and that. So for 1 hour, we all had a script and a 500 watt stage lighting with fireproof filters, coloured filters, to slide across this light on the balcony, which projected onto the ceilings of the balconies, which are white, and that would illuminate your balcony. And Ron Hazelden got the local school children to do drawings that fitted within the rectangular structure of the building, which meant that, and then across the road, over the railway lines, he had a large digital lighting. So when it struck 1 at 7 o'clock on that particular day, it may have said, I'd look on the script, yellow, so we all put a yellow light. But as we moved through the script, number 5 might say green for my balcony, but my neighbour, number 5, could be blue. And then it gave these different shapes, designs. So we were doing different things with each movement. And sadly, if everyone took part, this would have had a great impact. You know, you'd be driving up Goldhawk Road and you'd see this building 2 miles away changing colour in the setting sun, etc. But it was what it was. But that was an introduction to the reality of the building, that you have to approach these things realistically and sensitively, and with a degree of understanding, because not everyone sees things through my eyes or hears things. But that was a great thing. I really enjoyed being part of that, and it opened my eyes to the fact that the building is a canvas to the city as much as it's just a home, because it can be seen from a great distance and loved by many people. It's a very useful sort of canvas, I thought. So I would always engage with any artistic project that was came by the building, and sought to use it myself in my own strange ways. So yeah, we had an asexual character in red put over the building again 10, 12 years ago maybe. I'm no good with dates, but these things are online somewhere. And that was a person's feet effectively in the 2 corners at the bottom with their 2 hands held in the corners. So there's this red character made up of placing large red plastic panels on each balcony to form the character. And that was a complete character, bar maybe 4 or 5 flats. That was a successful image. And there's been others. Oh, yeah. And myself, I mean, Carnival is a useful time because you have a mobile audience passing you, unlike any other day of the year. So this year I intend to do a light box on the balcony. It's just simply 2 old cotton sheets studded around the balcony, close it off completely, and then just get a coloured LED light. Sat back in the lounge and just let it run for a few hours from dusk onwards as people leave Carnival. You'll have this abstract box halfway up the tower changing colour for no reason. That's perfect. That's all I want. And it's simple. And it costs nothing if I can just do that. Last year I let off balloons, 600 balloons, but the sky is very grey, and that wasn't as effective. But again, it's all trial and error. You don't know, and you can't control the weather either. But I did do a lot of experiments with fishing lines, tying the balloons a metre apart with helium and letting them hang off, tie them to the balcony, and then they hung off 50 yards and more, and then they just danced around the air at their own movement. And I came to realise that the sky, air is similar to water. These currents push each other all around the place. So they're just like coloured fish in the sky. So it's again, it's this abstraction. No one can see the fishing line, but they can see a dozen balloons doing stuff without flying off. So then I had 3 weeks left on the rental and 25% gas. So I asked my friend, rather than for the fishing line, can I have the fishing rod? So I tied another 16 with helium to the end of the rod and put the rod over the balcony, and then just fish them in and out, and I'd let the rod go off for 300 yards and then click it back and reel it in. And I just did that for 20 minutes. Got a friend to record it, because just to demonstrate that air has the same value. Because I sit there looking at the sky, and sometimes I just think, like, well, I come from the coast, and there's not a great difference between looking out at the sea and looking up at the sky, especially when you leave with 8 million people in a city. You can let your imagination take you there, and the sky is, it's that massive expanse that you can't tire of. And the balcony is somewhere that energizes me. It's vice versa. I enjoy looking off it, but equally I know I'm in a position to do something unusual and colourful and humorous, and I don't mind abstraction. Carnival's a party, so it's that contribution, that oddity, because I love other people's energy and etc. So why not be a part of it after 26 years? But I have that. I always look at Trellick thinking that's how can I utilise this place. And also the Golden Bridge looks fantastic with the blue lights over it. In the evening, have you seen them? There's a blue rope wire, it's a rope tube over the arches, but that's on the evening. And I just thought Trellick needs a straight one across the top at Christmas for 4 weeks, just to complement the curves of the bridge with the rigid straight line. And that's something I intend to do next year. Whether I'm a tenant or not, I'm going to seek funding to try and exercise that. And that'll be a test of my neighbourly values, if I can get 5 neighbours in a row to agree to this principle. But I haven't given up, so that's something I'd like to do too. But that's what the building means to me. It inspires me. A Kensal House wouldn't talk to me in the same way. So there you go.